After my 12-month ownership review of the Hypermotard, I received well over 40 comments. A lot of people mentioned other bikes that they've got, different comparisons. Some people who had a second bike, and some people who were considering getting a Hyper. So I thought I would share my different bike choices at the time of looking for a new bike. You'll notice that they're not all similar to the Hypermotard. There's lots of different types. And I suppose if you're like me, when you're looking for a new bike, there's lots of different bikes on your wish list. A wish list that never seems to stop growing. Fast forward to the time before I got my 950 SP, and things weren't any different. I was tire kicking for a while and managed to get out on a few of these different bikes that I was looking at and considering to get, but wasn't able to ride all of them for one reason or another. So if you've been able to own or test a bike, I'd love to know what your thoughts are in comparison to the 939 or the 950 Hyper. So I'll let you know what I was considering and why, and what I'd still like to get my hands on. So it seems like a lifetime ago when the 1290 Duke first came out, I was itching to get a shot of one. I think by the time I did get around to go and test one, it would have been a Gen 2. So I had to travel a fair distance to go and get a shot of a demo bike, only to find out that most of the electronics on it hadn't been unlocked, the wheelie control being one of them. I wasn't on any familiar roads. You know, the bike was a great bike to ride, I really liked it, but all the fun was held back a bit, so I didn't really get the full experience of the Super Duke. Now that there's a Gen 3 out, and after watching reviews like the 44 Teeth review and the MCN review, when they took the bike out on a circuit at Portimao, I'd still love to have a shot of one of these bikes. I notice there's a few people have left comments who've got a 1290 Duke and they're looking to get a Hypermotard, so I would love to know those comparisons. Sticking with KTM, I was able to ride one of the new 890 Dukes. Now I can definitely see the fun fact that whilst owning one of these bikes, but when I went and test rode one, I actually rode to the dealership when I had my RSV Formula Aprilia. So I had my one-piece leathers on. When I was out riding on the 890 Duke, all suited and booted, I felt like the one piece on that bike, it just felt like a bit of overkill. The 890 felt so small, and I'm not massive, I'm just under 6 foot, but both feet were easily planted on the floor, and the bike felt so skinny, especially in comparison to the Hyper. You know, whereas the Hyper, you know, when you've got your one piece suit on, you definitely feel at home. You feel comfortable. You don't feel out of place with your one piece suit on. The parallel twin engine compared to the Hyper's twin engine just felt like it was missing something. Now, when you look at the torque figures and the brake horsepower, they are very similar. I think it's just the way that the torque's delivered. It felt light, nimble, and it definitely felt fast. Whereas the Hyper, it just felt like more of a brute, like a bit of a beast. So the final KTM that I've not been able to ride yet, which again it's a completely different type of bike, would be a KTM 450 or a 500 EXC converted to Supermoto. Now obviously there's a few downsides to owning one of these. That's the servicing, the oil changes, valve clearances, every 5 minutes. But those are both things that, for myself anyways, that I'd be able to do. And I suppose the other thing is I wouldn't really want to be doing a 350 mile road trip on a bike like that, whereas you can manage on the Hypermotard, albeit with a sore ass at the end of it, but you can still do it. But for something you can have fun on and even switch the wheels out for some enduro wheels and tyres, I think it would be a great fun bike, especially being almost half the weight of the Hyper at around 100 kg. Another good reason is that the Hyper is a beautiful Italian stallion. It's not really a bike you want to fall off the back of whilst trying to learn all these slow balance point wheelies, that these guys make look so easy. Whereas a 2-3 year old KTM, 450 or 500, that thing would, especially mine anyways, would be spending more time sliding along a muddy field on its side. So if you've owned one of these bikes and you've got a Hyper or you've experienced a Hyper, I'd love to know what your thoughts are, to compare them both. So like I mentioned in one of my other videos, my Hyper is I purchased that on finance. It's on a PCP deal, which means that the monthly bills are lower, but it leaves a balloon payment at the end. So these other two bikes that I considered really, they really increase the monthly payments. Mine's 126 a month, which isn't bad, and that was with a £2,500 deposit. So the first being the Aprilia Trono. I've had the pleasure of riding a 2017 model that a mate of mine owned. I rode it on the road a few times and at Monte Blanco circuit, which I absolutely loved. Again, I know it's a different beast compared to the 939 or the 950, but I found it comfortable to ride. I thought it sounded amazing, and again, it's Italian. I thought it looked beautiful as well. And lastly, at the top of the cost pile would be one of the new V4 Street Fighters. Now, when I get back to the UK, or when I get back home from work, I'll be getting my Hyper serviced, so I'm definitely going to try and take a Street Fighter out for a spin. Yeah, like I've mentioned again, it is a completely different bike, but I'm really keen to find out what it's like. I'll try and get some footage together and share my thoughts once I've done that. Now, if you're like me, you want a garage full of every type of bike for every occasion, whether it's a sports bike, practical, or just for looks, off-road or on-road, or something to cruise around on. I want to be able to ride like these guys without the inevitable crashes and years of practice on older bikes, and be able to just jump on a beautiful bike that sounds amazing like the Hyper, which just doesn't happen. So thanks again for watching. All the comments in the previous videos, it really does help with others who are trying to make decisions, and for myself as well. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. Thanks again till the next video, and bye for now.